Christian is not my religious beliefs. It's not Christianity. That's not the
The
true.
gathering on February 5th, 2025, was announced as a moment of spiritual unity, a space where believers from different backgrounds would come together under one roof to reflect, worship, and listen. The atmosphere before the event carried that promise. Soft conversations, expectant faces, and a sense that something meaningful was about to happen. No one arrived expecting confrontation. People came to be fed spiritually, to hear familiar voices speak about faith in a complicated world, and to leave feeling strengthened. Yet as the night unfolded, it became clear that what was about to take place would challenge assumptions, unsettle comfort, and spark conversations that would ripple far beyond the walls of that room. Two voices, one stage, different visions. At the center of the evening were two well-known pastors, each representing a different approach to modern ministry. One was known for uncompromising sermons rooted in tradition, restraint, and warnings against what he viewed as excess. The other was recognized for an expansive, contemporary style that embraced visibility, growth, and cultural relevance. Both had large followings. Both had changed lives, and both believed deeply in their calling. What few anticipated was that their differing philosophies, long discussed quietly in religious circles, would collide openly, face to face, in a way that felt raw and unscripted. When silence became heavy, as the program shifted from worship to speaking, the energy in the room changed almost imperceptibly at first. The crowd sensed tension before words were exchanged. One pastor approached the microphone without flourish or introduction, his demeanor calm but serious. There was no dramatic buildup, no attempt to soften what he was about to say. His tone suggested urgency, not anger, as if he believed something essential needed to be addressed aloud rather than whispered behind closed doors. The room quieted, not out of fear, but anticipation. A challenge to the modern church. Instead of naming individuals or issuing direct accusations, the pastor spoke broadly about the dangers of turning sacred spaces into stages, of confusing influence with calling, and of allowing financial success to define spiritual authority. His words were firm, reflective, and unsettling because they touched on questions many had privately wrestled with. He spoke of faith as something fragile, easily distorted when mixed with spectacle, and warned that admiration could sometimes drown out accountability. Though no names were spoken, many in the audience sensed the message was not abstract. The weight of interpretation. As listeners absorbed the message, reactions varied. Some nodded quietly, feeling their own concerns voiced aloud. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing that the critique brushed too close to ministries they admired. A few looked toward the other pastor seated on stage, searching his expression for clues. The tension did not come from insults or raised voices, but from implication. In moments like these, meaning often lies not in what is said explicitly, but in what people believe is being referenced. A response. Chosen, not rushed. After a pause that felt longer than the clock suggested, the second pastor rose from his seat, and with that simple movement, the emotional temperature in the room shifted. There was no visible anger or defensiveness in his posture. Instead, he appeared thoughtful, almost careful, as if fully aware that words spoken in moments like this can linger far beyond the walls of a single event. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm and measured, resisting the instinct to react impulsively. Rather than framing his words as a direct rebuttal or personal defense, he chose to explain his perspective, how he understood faith, leadership, and responsibility in an era shaped by rapid change. It felt less like a counterattack and more like an attempt to steady the room, to remind listeners that conviction does not always need to arrive loudly to be sincere. Faith in a changing landscape. He went on to speak about how faith traditions throughout history have never remained static. From generation to generation, the church has adapted its language, its methods, and its platforms to meet people where they are. He acknowledged that conversations around visibility, influence, and resources can feel uncomfortable, especially when compared to earlier expressions of faith rooted in simplicity. Still, he argued that reach and impact often require tools that previous generations never had access to. In his view, growth was not automatically a sign of compromise, but often a reflection of relevance. He emphasized that sincerity and success do not have to cancel each other out, and that many people had encountered hope, healing, and purpose through approaches that might initially feel unfamiliar or unconventional. A room divided, not hostile. The reaction from the audience mirrored a much larger conversation unfolding across faith communities everywhere. Some listeners leaned into messages about restraint, humility, and caution, finding comfort in the call to protect sacred spaces from dilution. Others felt encouraged by the idea that faith could expand, evolve, and still remain meaningful. Yet the division in the room did not feel aggressive or combative. It was emotional rather than hostile. People were not choosing sides so much as recognizing pieces of themselves in one viewpoint or the other. Despite differing reactions, there was an underlying sense of restraint, an unspoken agreement that both perspectives were rooted in genuine belief rather than personal malice. Tradition versus expansion. As the exchange unfolded, it became increasingly clear that the tension was not about individual personalities, but about philosophy. One vision emphasized guarding tradition carefully, protecting depth, reverence, and spiritual focus from being diluted by modern pressures. The other emphasized expansion, carrying the message as far and as wide as possible, using every available avenue to reach those who might otherwise never engage with faith at all. Importantly, neither side dismissed the value of integrity. Neither claimed moral superiority outright. Instead, the difference lay in how responsibility was defined, shaped by personal experience, temperament, and interpretation of Scripture. It was less a clash of right and wrong and more a divergence of emphasis, choosing reflection over resolution. Notably, the exchange did not end with a dramatic conclusion or a clear sense of victory for either perspective. There was no final statement designed to win applause, no neat resolution wrapped in certainty. Instead, the conversation gradually slowed, as if both speakers understood that some disagreements are not meant to be settled in a single night. For some, the lack of closure felt frustrating. For others, it felt honest. Not every tension can be resolved through debate alone. Some require time, humility, and ongoing self-examination, both for leaders and for the communities that follow them. The aftermath beyond the walls. In the hours and days that followed, clips and interpretations spread rapidly online. Predictably, narratives hardened. Some framed the moment as a necessary prophetic warning. Others described it as resistance to progress. Social media amplified fragments while losing nuance. Yet for those who were present, the memory felt more complicated than any headline could capture. It was not chaos. It was confrontation without cruelty, disagreement without collapse. What the moment ultimately revealed. More than anything, the event revealed how deeply people care about the future of faith. The intensity did not come from ego alone, but from love. Love for Scripture, for community, and for what the church represents in an uncertain world. When beliefs matter, conversations become charged. That does not make them destructive. It makes them human. A mirror held up to the church. Rather than exposing individuals, the night held up a mirror to the broader church. It asked uncomfortable questions without providing easy answers. How does faith remain pure without becoming inaccessible? How does it grow without losing its soul? How do leaders remain accountable while navigating visibility and influence? These questions lingered long after the lights dimmed. Walking away changed. As people exited the venue, conversations continued in hushed tones and animated debates. Some felt affirmed, others unsettled, but few felt untouched. The gathering did not deliver the unity it promised, but it delivered something else. Clarity that unity does not mean uniformity, and that tension, when handled without malice, can be a catalyst for growth rather than division. The quiet truth. Beneath the noise. In the end, what happened that night was not a scandal, an exposure, or a collapse. It was a moment when differences that usually stay behind closed doors were spoken aloud. It reminded everyone present that faith communities are living organisms, constantly negotiating tradition and transformation. And perhaps that was the most honest outcome of all. Not agreement, but awareness.